See, if a business is going into debt to open up a new store or to open up a new manufacturing plant, that's an income-producing asset. You're going into debt to produce more income. But when you go into debt to do a stock buyback, which raises the stock price, or you go into debt to pay out a dividend, that's not an income-producing asset. That's going into debt to make your shareholders richer. And in 2020 and 2021, we saw a record amount of levered corporate buybacks. Levered corporate buybacks are when corporations use leverage, aka debt, to buy back their own stock. Now, okay, that's the first part of that. The second part of that is that corporations don't have 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. What do they have? Adjustable rate mortgages. And most corporate debt is readjusting every 3 to 5 years, which means that in the next 24 months, we're going to see a huge chunk of corporate debt readjust. Well, now let's think about that for a second, because a few years ago, interest rates were the lowest rates ever. That's when corporations started taking out these huge sums of money. In the next 24 months, when interest rates readjust, if interest rates are higher, that means the payments on these debts will also increase. So now, let's go back to the diagram. Demand is falling. That's what the Federal Reserve Bank is working for, which means revenues are falling, unless corporations can find a way to increase revenue, but it's a little bit tougher when you're seeing a slowing economy. So revenues are struggling to rise or they're starting to fall. Costs are rising because, well, inflation, higher labor costs, higher product costs, but then you also have the higher debt costs because corporations don't have 30-year fixed-rate mortgages, so debt servicing costs start to rise as well. This then puts a lot of businesses in a tough predicament, which is, okay, our costs are rising, our revenues are falling, we're going to have to make a change. That change is either we got to increase our revenue or we got to cut our costs. Again, like I just said, it's kind of difficult to increase your revenue when people have less money to spend. And people have less money to spend because inflation is so high. People have less money to spend because, well, people are seeing kind of the economy slow down. Eventually, if that continues, you're going to see less job opportunities. So people have less money to spend because of that. But then you also have, how do you cut your costs? And that's where one of the most accessible ways to do that is by letting some people go. Now, obviously, we've been seeing this happen in the tech sector and some other sectors now. And this is where now the question is, how much further will that go? Because it ultimately comes down to inflation. If the Federal Reserve Bank wants to bring inflation down to 2%, they're going to have to do more work in order to do so. What is that work? Raising interest rates. Well, what does raising interest rates do? It cools down demand even more. Cooling down demand even more slows down the economy even more. It slows down revenues even more. And this is that situation that we are just starting to scratch the surface of this happening. And it doesn't look like it's going to be going away anytime soon because inflation still has a way to go. And we still have to feel the impact of the higher interest rates. And now businesses are starting to see the impacts of, one, the higher costs and the debt servicing costs starting to rise. And this is something that over the next 24 months, we're going to see more and more of this progress. And while most people want to assume that everything is just going to be just fine, you have to pay attention to the red flags because the reality is this could create a lot of opportunities. It could also hurt people financially if you're not financially prepared. Now, you can look at what the Federal Reserve Bank is saying. The Federal Reserve Bank says that their prediction is that inflation is going to come down to 2% by 2025. Well, what does that mean for inflation to come down to 2% by 2025? That means between now and 2025, we're going to see above 2% inflation. Well, that also has its consequences because, like what I've been talking about, what does inflation do? Inflation hurts your buying power. And so if we continue to see higher than 2% inflation, that means more and more people are going to have less ability to spend. That also causes economic pain. So now if you kind of paint the picture of a triangle, we have three different things happening at the same time. We have the high inflation, which is slowing down the economy because high inflation hurts people's ability to spend. When you have high inflation, that means your rent is more expensive, your groceries are more expensive, so you have less money to spend on discretionary items. That means these other businesses have less money coming in because people don't have the ability to buy their products. Then on the second corner of the triangle, you have the higher interest rates. Higher interest rates are also hurting the economy because, well, the higher interest rates are cooling down demand. Higher interest rates makes borrowing money more expensive, which hurts people's ability to spend. Right? In our economic system, you can spend money with the money you work to earn, and you can also spend money with credit. That's how money works in our economic system because people don't just spend money based off of how much cash they have in their bank account. They spend based off of how much debt or credit they can qualify for. As interest rates go up, the amount of credit that's available goes down because less people are likely to borrow money, which means less spending is happening, which also cools down the economy. And then the third thing that we have happening, so we have the high inflation, the higher interest rates, is the slowing economy. And that's something that we're seeing happen right now. And this is where everybody has their question mark and their fingers looking right now is the economy going to slow even further? If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide on how to start generating passive income for free. All you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.